Today, we're diving into a full-blown media firestorm. It pits a politician's really controversial comments against accusations that the press deliberately twisted her words. This is a story all about what's said, and, maybe more importantly, what gets left on the cutting room floor. At the heart of all this is a big question. In a debate this heated, where does reporting stop and distortion begin? We're going to take a close look at how one media commentary makes its case that a major line was crossed. So, our story really is a war over words. In one corner, you've got Australian politician Pauline Hanson. In the other, Australia's public broadcaster, the ABC. And the commentary we're breaking down today comes from Sky News, which is presenting the case against the ABC. And just so we're all on the same page, everything we're about to walk through comes directly from that Sky News commentary. We're not here to take sides or judge the claims, but to explain exactly how they built their argument step by step. Okay, so what lit the fuse here? Well, it all started when the ABC show Media Watch called out Pauline Hanson for what they called a distortion of the truth about abortion. That criticism is what kicked off this whole debate.
To really get a grip on this controversy, we have to go right back to the original statement that's at the center of everything. So, what did Pauline Hanson actually say?
All right, according to the Sky News transcript, these are the key lines. And, it's an undeniably shocking statement. She makes two very specific and pretty horrifying claims. One, that abortions can happen right up to the day before birth. And two, that sometimes babies are born alive after an abortion and just left to die.
So, with that original statement as our baseline, the next piece of this puzzle is looking at how the media actually reported on those comments, specifically the Brisbane Times, which was highlighted by the ABC.
And this is the quote that got published. You can see right away how much more general it is. I mean, it captures her concern, sure, but it completely leaves out the graphic, explosive details that made her original statement so controversial in the first place. And this comparison really gets to the core of the whole dispute. What was reported is just the tip of the iceberg, right? A general, I have concerns. But what was omitted, that's the whole rest of the story. The specific, deeply unsettling claims about late-term procedures and infants being left to die. The difference is just massive.
And this brings us right to the main accusation from the Sky News commentator. They argue that by chopping out the most critical parts of her statement, the media didn't just shorten a quote for space, they fundamentally changed its meaning. They created, in their words, a distortion of the truth.
Okay, now here's where the whole thing takes a really interesting twist. Remember, the ABC's original point was that Hanson's claims were the distortion, but the Sky News source fires right back with a factual rebuttal of its own.
The commentary makes a really bold and direct counterclaim. They basically say Pauline Hanson wasn't distorting the truth. They argue that her statement, as shocking as it was actually factually correct. So how do they back this up? Well, they lay out several points. They claim that while it's extremely rare, abortions up until birth are legally possible in Australia. Now, these cases need the okay from two different doctors and are for specific medical reasons, which they point out can include the mental health of the mother. But what about the most disturbing part of Hanson's claim? To support that, the commentator goes a step further, bringing in their own professional experience. The commentator states point-blank that they have personally covered coroner's reports about babies born alive after an abortion who are then left to die. They even bring up a recent case in a Queensland hospital to give the claim more weight, arguing that while it's rare, it is a real thing that happens. So if the source is arguing that Hanson was factually correct, the next logical question is, why? Why would the media, as they see it, cut out the most important parts of her statement? And this question leads straight to an accusation of bias. So the commentary pivots here from questioning the what of the reporting to questioning the why. What was the media's real goal in presenting Hanson's words the way they did?
The source lays out two potential motives. The first one is personal, to misrepresent Pauline Hanson, to make her look like an ignorant anti-abortion liar. But the second one is much broader, that they wanted to deliberately hide the uncomfortable, messy facts about Australia's abortion laws from the public.
In the end, the commentator doesn't just pick one. They conclude that the motive wasn't just this or that, but probably a combination of both. A desire to discredit a political opponent and, at the same time, avoid a really difficult public conversation about the reality of the law. And this is the final, provocative thought the source leaves us with. It completely reframes the debate.
It's a direct challenge, suggesting that if a media outlet has to resort to what the source calls lies to attack a politician, well, maybe that says more about the media's own argument than it does about the politician herself.